The Custodes is one of the most improved factions in 9th edition. In fact, I think I'm giving it my award for most improved faction in 9th edition. And it's changed an awful lot. We've been test playing it here for many months as we've been test playing 9th edition. And GW was nice enough to give us early access to preview some of the rules. So today we're going to be taking you through some of the 9th edition tactics and strategies for the Custodes. So the main reason that the Custodes got better is because they got more CP.
Of course. Amazing.
Right?
They were so starved for it before. They were a very elite army that had a lot of really good strats, but you just had to be so careful with them.
Yeah, their base units are great, and the profile is good, but actually point for point, they're overpriced compared to other elite armies and Space Marines. It's only when you layer 1 or 2 strats on top of them that they actually shine. But in 8th edition, you could never get enough command points to really do that.
Exactly.
Now, every unit gets to use its 1 or 2 key strats at least once a game, maybe even more. And now all of a sudden, not only are you getting your points worth for them, but you're going well beyond. And basically, every problem the army has can be solved through CP.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you should be really excited because you can actually, and you want to run them as purely Custodes. You don't have to bring any Loyal 32, AdMech, things like that. In fact, in this case, you're going to be paying for that, and they can do everything they want pretty much with 1 detachment because of the way that we have elite slots, troop slots, things like that. You don't need your 3x3 Guardians unless you really want to build around that. So that's a fantastic new change, especially with all the new Psychic Awakening we just got.
Absolutely. The rules in Psychic Awakening are fantastic, the stratagems, but everything costs command points. And just to put it in perspective, a lot of Custodes players would have roughly 4 CP, maybe going into a game. And now we're talking about over the period of a game, being somewhere around 17 plus. If you add in Trajan, that could be up to 20. If you add in the regen commander trait, we're up to 25. This potential of 25 command points for an army that used to have 4. This is a massive change. This is a massive change. And some armies don't really revolve around their stratagems. Some like Genestealer cults and maybe even Blood Angels do. Custodes is absolutely one of those as well. So more CP dramatically changes this army. That on its own. But there's other things that come along with the new detachment rules as well.
Yeah, it's very, very flexible, as we were just saying. You don't have to take certain units. So you can build things that are around just a couple of Lars Terminators. They're probably one of our favorite units. So you can actually do that now. Get a couple of those, get your Telemons, which we know Brian loves.
For sure.
This flexibility is something that's going to be extremely powerful, especially if you're trying to build your force around a couple of specific tactics.
Yeah, the units are so expensive that the idea that you used to have to include a battalion was already half your army.
Yeah, by the time you spent that, you're like, well, this is all I have left, and you can't...
But now, because you can take detachments other than a battalion to start with, you can really explore all Dreadnought builds, or all, as you're saying, all Terminator builds, all Elite builds, all tank builds, things like that. And you're not really sacrificing that many CP to go down these other roads. So I love the idea that now you can explore the wider range of models. And you don't almost have to feel guilty that you're not getting the CP.
That's right.
They can all be pretty amazing.
Yeah, and on a related note, that all the new changes to vehicles, and in particular we're thinking about Dreadnoughts, are a massive boost to Custodes. We love Telemons here. They always had some really interesting aspects, like the high toughness. They could be very shooty if you build them like that, but they were always very prone to getting tagged, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now half the Custodes vehicles already had Power of the Machine Spirit. Looking at this half over here.
They're good.
And they just, you know, that ability, they didn't really gain anything there.
We've seen them. They were good. Right?
Exactly. If anything, they lost the ability to fall back and shoot, which that's kind of a big loss. But all the Dreadnoughts, which were super cool, very flavorful, right? They really wanted to be moving up all the time. And then they lost that efficiency in hitting. And then when they were tagged in combat, they couldn't shoot. And now they get to shoot, fight, move up, shoot. They're just playing in all the different phases, but also they can now fight up 5 inches, so people can't hide from them quite as well.
Right, that's a huge deal. And this goes for everything, but especially for those Telemons. That it's also, they really benefit from the smaller board size on them as well. They're very slow, so that's nice.
Yeah, and combine that with the new stratagems to half damage or reduce damage on Dreadnoughts and give extra attacks to Dreadnoughts.
They are ridiculously durable.
I'm really into the Dreadnoughts. As everyone here in the studio knows, all I talk about. Bridger is always telling me to take these Telemons out of my list, but I'm sticking with it, so I'm really into
it. Super interesting.
Another thing is about the tempo of the game. Historically, some missions, they really need you to go hot right from turn 1, especially if you were playing in competitive formats, where you need to get a kill and really dominate the board turn 1. But you don't need to do that in these new Games Workshop missions.
Yeah, absolutely. Custodes can be very killy, but it's really hard unless you're running all, Caladius and things like that, to do that right away. So with basically the removal of kill points, and especially things like first strike, you can take your time, you can set up, you can actually wait, you could do nothing for a turn or two.
That's right.
And then kind of take the board in the later half of the game. And that's a huge bonus in the pacing of the army.
That's a big tempo. You could be slow, be durable, very deliberately take the center, and then go hot for the last 3 turns of the game, and you could still max your points.
Yes.
You've given up nothing.
That's right.
Right? And that's crucial because, as you say, they need to get into position. They need to wait till they can deep strike. And now having that tempo change, it's actually it seems small, but it's really big for this army. And it means you don't have to take the Cladius to get that first turn kill.
No, absolutely.
You can go all infantry, which a lot of us want to do with the Custodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the other thing is the fact that the missions are also about holding. And because you only score at the top of your turn, it means you have to hold all the way through your opponent's turn, which means it's not enough just to hold. Right. You want to be obsec, because they could easily put models on the objective, and you want to be durable. And who better has durable obsec units than the Custodes, right? Almost everything here is obsec, and it's all very durable.
They are almost completely uniquely equipped to deal with this new sort of situation, right?
Yeah.
Because so many armies will be able to take objectives, but will have trouble holding them down, staying alive. Custodes are going to be able to get up to the midboard, hold things, fight for them, kill for them, and survive. And so this thing that kind of didn't matter as much before, because you could just run something on the point, it'll die. Yeah. This becomes so much more valuable, and they're almost completely unique in their ability to do this.
And I think also there's little tiny buffs that the army has, like for instance, the new stratagems that allow anyone to heroically intervene.
Oh my gosh.
It means that you can hold that objective, and if somebody tries to come in and sneak in and get within 3 inches, you could you could jump on them. And so they can't even out-obsec you because you'll charge them in their turn, right? And there's many, Custodes have actually 3, 4 separate ways to charge in an opponent's turn, depending on the unit. And so there's no exception for that. You're not going to get away from that. Another one is, of course, we talked about it's a slow army, it wants to move up. Well, the board is smaller now. Now, the distances between you are roughly the same, but it means the deployment zone isn't as deep. So the opponent can't retreat all the way back into the deployment zone. By the time you get to them, there's just less room to hide.
Absolutely. And this can make things like deep strike tougher. And again, Custodes have special things like the vexilla that become that much more useful to just get in there and make these surgical strikes. And actually just, at the worst case, push everyone back to outside of inside of their deployment. It's really, really powerful for them. And as we said, the first 2 turns, you can be getting into position. So this mid board is actually really, really strong.
I think you brought up an interesting point. The fact that screens are getting stronger, but they don't get stronger against Custodes with a vexilla teleport.
Oh my goodness.
So the fact that most people are going to be used to a certain playstyle where they're screening out the board, maybe spreading pretty thin, but the Custodes could power on through with that vexilla, teleport right in where it matters, and make a crucial charge into the heart of someone's army. That like single kind of decapitating strike has always been their strength, but I feel now that people will almost be less prepared to come up against it because all the other armies don't do it.
Right.
And Custodes are the only ones that really can.
And this is a tactic that we've seen over and over again work in our test games. And it's just absolutely devastating. They get in there, they do that punch, and then they just hold it. And you're sitting there, you're saying, how can I remove 5 Alaris Terminators with all the new buffs to durability? It is brutal.
Yeah, so those are really the positives, but there's been some things that either haven't got better or even got a little worse.
Sure.
But in general, the army, I'd say, got a huge buff. It's one of the most buffed. But one of the key things is that, and we're saying this about all armies, is that in general, although the terrain rules seem to make it easier to hide, in practice, it actually is harder to hide.
Absolutely.
And this is because you can't go inside those ruins anymore and just be safe forever.
It's really harsh for infantry and infantry that want to get close, right? We're talking about getting up close to a ruin, charging out to turn off Overwatch, things like this. You can't do that, right? The moment that you touch terrain, people can see through windows. And so Custodes, generally speaking, would love those little corner ruins, charge out on them, things like that. But now you have to stay behind them, which makes you more susceptible to getting maneuvered around.
That's right.
It's actually much harder to stay hidden with this army.
So yeah, if you're moving up the board, you're moving through terrain, now you're visible. And this army was always suffered against shooting, right? High value shooting, and really, we think because of this added line of sight or reduced line of sight, we think the shooting will be more predominant in the meta over combat. And that means in general we'll have more shooting opponents and less room to hide.
That's right.
So we're going to have to be extra cautious about how we use the terrain and how we plan our deep strikes to keep our key targets safe so that they're not being shot at all game. Because even the Custodes can't survive 2 or 3 turns from a heavy shooting army. No one can.
That's the way to do it. And think about this, too. Often, Custodes were trying to get on cover, get that cheeky 2-up because they're just touching it. Now, if you're touching it, you're visible, right? So you can be invisible but have a 3-up or be visible with a 2-up, right? Which one's better? So things change dramatically for that.
Yeah, and so one of the other things is that about this meta that's changing is we think that people are going to go towards MSU or multiple small units, which means this is because there's no kill points. So people won't feel bad about spreading the board with very weak units. Now, actually, this isn't the best for Custodes because the Custodes only have 4 maybe units in an army, right? You have like maybe 1, 2 Terminator blobs, a big captain or 2. That's about it. Yeah. You really wanted them to have big threats, so you could centralize and go after. If their armies spread out with a bunch of little threats, what you'll end up doing is coming in, charging something inconsequential, killing it, and then taking a lot of shooting. And what this does, it builds a deep screen that you have to get through. Exactly. And it means that you can't get that decapitating strike because no one thing in their army is that valuable. And this is actually going to be a challenge for Custodes, and you're going to have to almost be patient and know when to almost ignore their army and play the mission, force them to come to you. 100%. And if you can do that, that's often what's going to work best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about those, how do you get around these layered screens? How do you ignore them? Remember, killing doesn't matter, so that goes both ways, right? You don't have to kill them, and you need to try to play around that. It's not going to be easy, absolutely, but there are new tools to do that.
I think you brought up another thing. The Custodes generally were a kill point denial army. That used to be one of their strengths, that they never gave up many kills. That isn't that valuable anymore. Yeah. And so those little advantages are losing a bit of their weight. And I think in general, the fact that you have so few units, because you still want to be big clumped units because of the stratagems, it means it's harder to spread out. The objectives in this game are further apart. So all the GW missions, the objectives are pretty far apart.
Absolutely.
So getting everywhere is not going to be easy. So there's little things like that you're going to have to think about as well.
And in many of the missions, you're also playing to at least hold 2, hold 3, or hold more. And so getting just over that threshold could be kind of a challenge, right? I think you can still kind of bully one, but that generally gets you half the objectives or half the board. And pushing for that additional objective is going to be kind of a challenge. You have to be careful with the assets you have.
Yeah, everyone knows who plays the Custodes that the vexilla is one of the key units. Now, one of the challenges is with the vexilla is the goal is to get him up to the center of the board or into your opponent's deployment where he could teleport in, right? Now, he used to just hide behind 1 or 2 or 3 other custodian guard. Well, now the new character targeting rule means there needs to be at least 3 or more models, and your custodian guard squads start at 3. So as soon as they drop 1, he's targetable, and they will put their whole army into killing him. So you need to start thinking about other kind of bodyguards for him. I've been thinking of the Telemon, Bridger. And maybe a Telemon here with 1 gun and 1 fist. So he can walk up, still be shooting, be a great punchy bodyguard once he gets up there.
And then he can intervene if they come close.
That's right. And so, but you could do what works for you, right? Different things are going to work. Maybe you take a larger squad, but definitely think twice about just running your vexilla up behind only 1 unit of 3 custodian guard.
Absolutely.
That's just not going to do it.
Yeah, right. So as we mentioned, one of the things that Custodes are very vulnerable to is just massed shots, right? They don't have to be the best shots in the world, but there's going to be so many of them that you just can't survive. So one of the good tricks for them was to actually try to wrap units, get the sort of try point.
That could be an instant win before.
Absolutely, because then you kill them off. The next turn, you're completely in their lines. Now, of course, with the breakout stratagem, there's actually try-pointing, unless you can try-point 2 models, it's not going to happen. And that's actually a very big hit for not only the Custodes, but all sort of melee armies that are trying to do that finesse right before the final kill. And that's going to be something that's not possible anymore.
Thankfully, the Custodes still have one solution out of this. Even though you can't wrap, you could still Tanglefoot. And Tanglefoot is an amazing stratagem that's still going to allow you to prevent units from falling back. And so you still need to rely on a decent roll, and you still need to be positioned well. Now, the breakout stratagem is still going to let you get out of Tanglefoot. So what you'd have to do is like wrap 1 unit, Tanglefoot another in a way. So it's not easy, but you have these tools still, which are really key.
When you have more of these tools, right? Because before it was like, do I want to Tanglefoot? I'm really only getting 1 or 2 of these for this game. Do I actually want to do Stooping Dive? But now, sure, you can do Tanglefoot all 5 times.
Tanglefoot every turn, and you should. Tanglefoot is so, even if there's no one in range, just use Tanglefoot. It's the best stratagem in the game. It's so good. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to take you through a couple little strategies just to let you see how some of these units might play a little differently at a fine level. And then we're going to go through some lists and talk about the kinds of things we're going to be playing at the start of 9th edition.
Yeah, let's take a look.
One of the first examples we're going to show you is something the Custodes could have always done, but they never had the CP to do.
In theory, yeah, that's right.
And the bikes have always been one of my favorite units. A lot of people's favorite units. Hard to make them work. Now with the CP, they're back in business.
That's right.
And what we have set up here is 2 units of bikes. They're both 2 units of 4. I don't necessarily subscribe to the giant unit of bikes theory. So 2 units of 4 here. And we have a very strong unit of Death Shroud Terminators right up front. So the Death Shroud here are going to be coming in for a charge. And realistically, they could chop 4 of these bikes in half.
Absolutely.
They are super deadly unit. So they make their charge fairly easily. and they don't suffer any Overwatch. Now, we have the Stooping Dive ability,
That's right.
which is going to allow us to charge ourselves. So there we are. We rolled a horrible charge, but it's fine. It's good enough because we put them right behind, and we're going to actually get to jump over and attack. And this is going to allow us to attack first with our bikes. And our bikes are going to chop this unit in half or almost kill it.
That's right.
And this means that if you keep these 2 units of bikes together, they're immune to being charged. Now, you're not going to do this in every match. You're going to do this in particularly combat-focused. When somebody has, a big Blood Angel unit that's going to deep strike and make a hit, you make a wall with units and then put the bikes behind the Stooping Dive over top.
Yeah.
And you're basically unchargeable.
I mean, it's a great way to make use of not having a ton of bodies, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have something that's going to be coming towards you. You could have an objective here that you're trying to defend. Make it so that they have a tough decision. Do they actually want to charge not just 4 bikes, but 8 bikes and fight second? Then that becomes something that's probably not even worth trying in the first place.
Yeah. Now, you only use this selectively when you think that the bike unit that you charged with is going to make enough of a dent.
That's right.
Right? If someone's charging in with Mortarion, and 4 bikes are going to not kill Mortarion, then it's all you're doing is feeding Mortarion more bikes, and he'll just chop most of them in half, and now you're in big trouble. So this isn't a universal rule, but for most things charging you, a handful of bikes is going to be enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and you would almost have never seen this before just because it was too expensive.
That's right.
And now there's all these new stratagems that you had before that now become much more useful.
Yeah.
Many more tools to use.
Dig through those strats. You can use them now.
It is.
All right, so let's take a look at another example. The next strategy we're going to show you isn't as much about movement, but it's a lot more about what you could do to spend those copious CP that you now have.
It's about making these tough boys even more heroic.
Absolutely. So what we have here is 2 shield captains on Dawn Eagle jet bike, and we recommend that you almost always put 2 of them in your list because they're so flexible, and really they're just the best HQ slots that you have.
They do a lot of work, and they've always done a lot of work. There was a while where you couldn't go to a table without seeing 1 or 2 of these bullying you across the board. Yeah. Absolutely critical. But we find that you can actually do exactly what you've always wanted to, and really make it worth your points. We haven't really played without 2 because it's so powerful.
Yeah. So let's talk about the layers of buffs that you can do pre-game to make these guys really strong. And this is something we've been doing in our playtest for quite some time, and we really think is strong.
It's extremely powerful.
So we're going to start off with the things that you already did, which was making 1 your Warlord and taking the Superior Creation Warlord trait. This gives him the 5-up Feel No Pain. It's an amazing add on top. Then you give him the Orc Aquilus Relic. This bike gives him a 3-up Invulnerable save and the ability to reroll charges. That alone has been a standard, and it's an excellent start.
That's great.
But that's just where we start. So we take the other one, and we try to give him something similar. We give him the Eagle Eye Relic, which is a 3-up Invulnerable save.
Cool.
And then he could get a Warlord trait now for 1 CP.
Right.
Now, there's so many Warlord traits. If you've looked at the Custodes Warlord traits, every one of them is useful, and you pick the right one for your matchup. We particularly love the Emperor's Companion when it's paired with a bike that has the missile. Right. Because this allows you to reroll damage both in the shooting phase and in the fight phase with the spear. So you get a lot more punch out of that guy. But you could also go more defensive, right?
Yeah.
You could take the Radiant Mantle for -1 to hit.
Very powerful.
You could take the Impregnable Mind for the ability to deny.
Very powerful in a lot of the secondary missions.
Yeah,
now.
or you could take an army buff one like the Champion of Humanity to give you heroic intervention.
Right.
So that one doesn't work as well because it's, you can already do that for a CP now, so you don't need it as much. But anyways, you have your choice. Yeah. So, okay, we have both with Warlord traits, both with relics. It's a great start.
Yeah.
But now what we're going to do is pay 2 CP each to give them each Victor of the Blood games.
Absolutely. And this was always a powerful stratagem. It gives you a reroll in each of the turns. And so basically, as long as you used it twice in the game, you'd get your CP back. Yeah. The difference is you can actually afford to do this. And you can afford to do it twice.
And it's, you know what, it's even more than just getting to use 2 free rerolls.
Yeah.
It allows you to do 2 rerolls in 1 phase.
You can stack
so
them.
with that 3-up Invulnerable save, if someone was hitting you with big swings, you could get 2 rerolls.
That's right.
Making it so that almost every single fight phase, you just could tank anything.
Yeah.
Right? And that was always really great. So now, those 2 Victor of the Blood games, the Relic and the Warlord trait, we're at 6 CP spent, but we're not done. Because we're going to spend 1 more for Captain Commander, and you can choose which one you want to put this on. I would generally put it on the better one and make him even better, or you could spread out your threats. It's up to you.
Why.
And there is a handful of choices here. I think our in-house favorite is Unstoppable Destroyer.
So it's so good and so difficult to fight against. It essentially lets you consolidate in any direction. And does it also change the movement?
3 plus D3 inches.
So basically what this lets you do is jump in, fight, do your stuff. You can back off. And in fact, if this was your opponent's turn, then you are free to move wherever you want. It's better than a fall back and charge, fall back and shoot. It's incredibly powerful.
So useful.
Oh my gosh.
And because they're obsec, it can allow you to reposition onto an objective just in time for your turn. It can allow you to charge, fight, and fall back before they fight you. It can allow you to pile into something else.
That's right.
Tons of cool stuff there. But that's not the all. There's Master Strategist, which is going to give you the ability to gain command points back.
Right.
And it's better than most because it allows you to roll 1 dice for each CP spent. And because those CP are so valuable, you're just getting more back.
Yeah.
There's honestly, the list is full of good ones getting extra attacks, but those two are our standout favorites.
They're all totally worth it. And there are a few big stratagems in the army, which we've already talked about. That'll be really good to roll for that. And plus, you're looking at, what, 17? And you're going to be spending the 6, then you're re-rolling for all of those. You're going to have plenty of CP to do all your other tricks.
So we've spent 7 CP pre-game here.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's points well spent.
We think so.
And people will be surprised at how strong these guys are. So this is a really great just combo of things to do before a game. Next up, we're going to show you how to get the most out of your vexilla and make sure it survives getting mid-game. One of the linchpins of the Custodes army is the vexilla, and this is because of the vexilla teleport Homer stratagem. It is really the core tactic behind almost all Custodes armies, and it's made even better recently because you have more CP, but it's also made harder because of the new character rule.
Yes, absolutely. You want to make sure you protect this vexilla. He's more important than ever. Deep strikes are tougher.
Yes.
There's a lot of reasons that you really want to be able to use this tool to get in. But, of course, with the new character targeting, you can't have him just generically behind some Custodes that might be off to the side. You have to have bodies next to him at all times.
That's right.
And it's also tough because a lot of the time we're taking squads of 3. As soon as one dies, you only have 2. He's not protected. So there's a few tricks we can use to actually keep him alive throughout the game.
Historically, we would take a unit of 3 Custodian Guard with shields and swords. And we would move them up through a ruin, not unlike this one here.
Sure.
This would allow us to have them essentially invisible because the ground floor would block line of sight. And he could be in there with them or just behind. He could even be in there on his own without any screen. But this would be extra safe, to stop people from coming in to charge him, maybe something like that.
Absolutely.
As it stands today, this isn't enough.
No, it's terrifying.
Because what's going to happen here is this unit in here is now visible because they're touching this ruin piece. Now, what you're going to have to look out for is once you're in these ruins, it becomes true line of sight, which means on this ruin here, you can see there's windows almost all the way around the front. But on this corner here, the windows are actually blocked by different mechanical pieces. So you can actually hide your unit in the corner, and from this angle of the board, they'd be largely unshootable.
Exactly.
Those are little opportunities to look for. This vexilla is pretty tall. It can't quite hide behind there. So he still can be there on his own, but it would allow my vexilla to be a little further up the board. Now, every inch up the board the vexilla is, the better, because next turn it can advance out, teleport in really deep into enemy lines, but you can't risk losing it.
Absolutely. And this is going to be something that when you come to a table, you want to start looking for these corners, these little pieces of terrain that you can really use. Because as we said, it's really just this section of the building, right? It's not going to be a whole area of the board. It's not going to be as dramatic as it was before, but you will find angles. And then you can also place other units to sort of defend these other angles, right? And I'm sure you guys can see this door that's right here. And so that becomes something to also keep an eye out for.
So one of the things we're advising here is don't rely on these 3-man blobs. In fact, at least take them up to 4, maybe 4 with shields and spears, or sorry, shields and swords. You could even think about taking a larger squad as a guardian squad, because in a lot of matches, when your vexilla dies, you might lose the game.
It is huge.
Right? So really investing a lot more. Now, infantry is not the only thing that blocks. The other thing that blocks is vehicles.
Telemon.
So here we have a Telemon, but it could be any dreadnought. The Telemon is just the best choice.
Absolutely.
Because the Telemon is legitimately hard to remove. He's TA. He has a 6-up feel no pain. He has a 4-up invulnerable save, and you half damage on him now. Nobody wants to shoot your Telemon.
It's pretty gnarly.
It's awful, especially early game when you're rushing him up the board with your vexilla. They want to kill the vexilla, but they just can't afford to try and get through the Telemon first.
That's a very good point because you're pretty much dropping in from your teleportarium within turn 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
And so in the early game, you have to invest so much to maybe take down a Telemon. They're having to put so much in there that's also kind of a win for the rest of your army, right?
That's right.
Telemon's the thing that's like, yeah, it's there, but we don't want to have to shoot it. We can be much more efficient somewhere else. And so you can really take advantage as they both come up the board.
But if you don't kill the Telemon, every turn he's moving and shooting. This one has a gun and a fist. So he's moving and shooting every turn, and then when he gets too close, he's still going to punch you.
That's right.
So he also makes a great guardian for him if someone comes in to try and charge. But you do have to watch out for that. If someone's able to wrap around and shoot or wrap around and charge, then it's not a done deal. So you've got to be careful about where he's orbiting around this to not allow him to become the closest model.
And stay as close as you can, because you can unlock the heroic interventions with things around there.
Yeah.
But You just have to be very careful, keep them close, be ready to respond to anything that tries to flank you around that base.
Yeah, so the main thing here that we're trying to tell you is be careful about using terrain to protect your vexilla. Be careful about how large the squad is that you use to guard him. Maybe even consider something large like a Telemon on the board. When you are putting a Telemon on the board, probably take a shootier variant so that it's moving up the board, shooting as well, and not taking a fighty variant that's just not doing anything up the board. You want it to be a threat. You want a threat overload. That's the Custodes way.
Yeah, absolutely. So these have been just a few different examples of things that we think are useful and might be slightly different than you're used to that you can take advantage in your games.
So why don't we take a look at a few army lists and see the kinds of things that we're building for our 9th edition armies.
Let's take a look.
Next, we're going to take you through a couple army composition ideas that we've been floating around and that we've actually been playtesting and have been working pretty well for us.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we're going to say is the backbone of almost every army is the Alaris Terminator.
They're so powerful.
Most of our lists have 12.
Right.
Some of our lists have only 6.
That's right. They do so much work for you with all the strategies we've talked about so far.
Yeah. They're just super durable. They teleport in really well, and they can hit really hard. They do it all, and they've got that infantry keyword. Anytime I take, and I go down to just 6 of them, I actually replace them with bikes. And the bikes give you some horde clearing. They let you also deep strike in really hard. They let you stooping dive. They give you a ton of other tools. So I think for a more well-rounded list, going with a handful of bikes and a full unit of Alaris Terminators might work, but to each his own. I think you could go both ways. I think both of those are super useful.
Absolutely. I'm personally very partial to the double 6-man Alaris. You get the Vexilla in there.
Yeah.
Once you guys start playing the missions, you'll find out that you really want to play this mid-board control. They can hit hard and hold it. Do all the things that we've talked about that are amazing. And it's still actually relatively well-rounded. It can kind of flex in different directions. So personally, I love that list. I think it's so powerful and so strong, too.
What's also very common, and you've already seen us talk about, is the double shield captain on jet bike. Those are pretty auto-include. The only flex add is Trajan. And we get Trajan in probably about half of our lists. And that's really because Trajan's great, but he also gives CP. And those are both valuable abilities. You can't always fit him in because you'll cut him for something else here or there, because he is a handful of points, but he's really, you know, he's great no matter what you do. I would also say, obviously, an auto includes the Vexilla. I tend to just have him out of Terminator armor, so I could just give him a Storm Shield. Because for me, his main thing is to just stay alive.
That's right.
And these days, I'm giving him the Vexilla Defensor, which is the extra attack, rather than the -1 to hit. But the -1 to hit still has a place.
It's still good, right? We talk about it, the fact that caps out, but the -1 was always it's always whatever they were going to get anyways, so it's fine.
But
it works
now all
well.
of a sudden their infantry can move and shoot with heavy or advanced, and like they're not suffering anything.
Exactly, and the +1 attack is just so good. We want to play very centrally. He's not often going to get sort of outrun by the people that he's around.
That's right.
And that was not the case before, so that changes things a lot.
Now, for me, the patrol detachment is one of the ones I go to. You have to be careful because it doesn't actually unlock that many elite slots.
No.
So if you're going to have the list with double Alaris, then you probably need to think about a battalion, or you need to think about a double patrol.
Right.
And that starts to cost you CP. So I like going with the single patrol detachment that has only one troop choice. And the one troop choice can either be normal guard with shields for more durability, or the Sagittarium. Because the Sagittarium now can run up, advance, and shoot with both profiles of their gun.
That's right.
And now, normally that would have been a -2 to hit. Now it's a max of -1.
That's great.
And their guns are very effective. So it depends what you need. If you want a bit more shooting, you could look at the Sagittarium. They're more interesting than ever. I like someone durable to stand on a back or side objective, so I generally go with the shield squad.
That's right. I'm glad you brought up the detachments, because that's been probably the #1 change in kind of building these lists, is you realize suddenly the slots in these things matter, right? The battalions before, we had all these extra slots everywhere, things like that, but now you really have to consider how you're going to do it. Would you rather get the more slots for the extra patrol, which isn't too bad, it's only 2 CP, but that starts to really, really matter how you break that down.
Exactly. Now you can also see I have the Telemon here, and I like the all versions. I like the all combat, the all shooting, and the half shooting and combat. The all shooting is still super scary. In fact, it's better because moves and shoots now. So it's moving around, getting line of sight. It's easier to get more line of sight on the board because of all the reasons we've talked about. And he shoots in combat, so you can't tag him.
So good.
These are all fantastic. Now, the shoot and fight one is probably the best middle ground because he walks up pounding you with his guns, and then he can still punch. Really, really scary. He's still got 4 attacks. You can upgrade it to 5 with Eternal Penitence Stratagem. So I love the Telemon, and as we've just gone over, I love him for his ability to shield my Vexilla. In fact, he's my favorite shield for the Vexilla.
Oh, absolutely.
Because for me, I've got that one guard squad. they're on a back objective. Now someone's got to run up. That's the Telemon, and it's the Vexilla. Once the Vexilla does his thing, the Telemon goes and holds another objective for all game.
Right.
And then the Terminators go and take the heart off their army. The bikes come around the side and do the same. And then it's game over.
It's so
game
good.
For the Custodes.
We've been having a lot of fun playing these lists, so definitely check them out. We'd love to see what you guys come up with.
Yeah.
But they've been just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're excited to see what you do with your Custodes armies. The Custodes, as you can see, is a really improved army that we're really excited to play. And we will be playing it. We've got battle reports this week for it, and of course, many more. And of course, stay tuned because we are going to be doing a tactics video like this for almost every single faction to cover 9th edition, as well as videos about how to play 9th, how to play competitive, new Crusade rules, everything.
We cannot wait. If you want to play with them or against them, definitely like and subscribe. There's going to be so many videos. You don't want to miss any. And honestly, they're going to be at all times of day. We're really excited to do this and just excited to play more games.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see you there.